In studio with New York Times best-selling author John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
And Mr. John Doyle. You'll need your headphones this segment, Mr. Doyle, because we have a phone guest as well. Yeah, so strap them up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome back.
It's nice to be back.
Via telephone, we have Summer Barrett. Summer, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And in studio, Tommy Weatherholtz. Tommy, good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
Summer, I was telling Tommy that I remember calling Musselman football games when he was a young lad playing football there. That's how old I am.
Oh, well.
Yes.
I'm not going to participate in that discussion.
Yeah. Well, it happens to all of us at some point along the way.
Do you have Lisa on the line also?
Lisa has not yet called in.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
Michelle has not called in either, for that matter. So when she does, we'll let her join, and we'll make sure that you're aware of that too. In the meantime, Tommy, West Virginia Surety Bail Bonds Agents Association, and Michelle, who may join us, is National Association of Bail Agents and the New York State Bail Association too. And our topic at hand here is what we discussed earlier this week with the Berkeley County Prosecuting Attorney, and then again yesterday with the Chief Magistrate of the county as well, and that is cash or cashless bail, as some call it. Summer, you brought this to my attention about some federal legislation regarding this. Do you want to explain a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So the firm that I co-own has represented the Bail Bondsmen's Association that Tommy is the president of for the last couple years, and we've worked at the state level to try to make it so our law states that no one charged with a felony is released on what the national, lingo that the Trump administration and others are using is quote-unquote cashless bail, but here in West Virginia we would refer to it as a personal recognizance bond, or short PR bond. So if I say PR bond, I'm referring to the same thing that the Trump administration is referring to as cashless bail.
Gotcha.
So the bills that we've worked on for the last few years would make it so no one charged with a felony could be released on those PR bonds, and then no one charged with a violent misdemeanor or even Schedule 1 and 2 drug misdemeanors could be released on those PR bonds. And, I started hearing all of this chatter at the national level after we saw that brutal murder of the young immigrant on the train in North Carolina. And I started hearing a lot of talking points about liberal judges and liberal cities and liberal states. And I just, we are not that. we are not a liberal state, and we're not. We certainly don't have very many, if any, liberal cities in our state. Maybe a couple. And I don't think even most of the judges who choose to use PR bonds would classify themselves as liberal judges. And I just don't think that the conversation should be about partisan politics, because it's not. It really, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of the association that my firm and I represent, it's more about ensuring that our communities are safe. And when these individuals are released without bail or on their own recognizance under these policies, they're permitted to further endanger law-abiding citizens. And that's what we've been working to mitigate for the last few years. And at times we've had some success. The Senate has passed the bill a couple times, and then ultimately it didn't pass the House. In the last session, we didn't see movement on either side. And I can, make my assumptions as to why that is, but really I want to focus on the fact that we have a Republican supermajority in our legislature right now, and they claim to want to be tough on crime. They claim to want to uphold law and order, and they claim to support the president's agenda. And this is something that the Trump administration has made a huge national deal over now. There's a federal bill that Elise Stefanik and Marsha Blackburn have sponsored that is hopefully going to move at the national level. And so this is something that the Trump administration is paying attention to. I realized in the executive order that he issued, it even goes as far as to say, it is therefore the policy of my administration that federal policies and resources should not be used to support jurisdictions with cashless bail policies. Well, the state of West Virginia has cashless bail policies in place, and we see these violent offenders released on PR bonds regularly. And I believe that that's very dangerous for our state and for our communities. And obviously, Tommy's there in person. He can talk about, the real life situations that he witnesses. And then hopefully Michelle will join us and she can talk, from a national perspective as what happens in other states and what they're trying to accomplish at the national level. But I'm here to answer questions about, from a legislative perspective.
And Summer, from that legislative perspective, in talking with Magistrate Scholl yesterday, I got the impression that they simply enforce the laws made by the state legislature then. So if it is the state legislature that needs to get moving on this, I guess that's where it has to begin. John, your thoughts on that, Mr. Doyle, former delegate?
Oh, I was just going to...
Yeah, go ahead. You can, Summer, yeah.
I just was going to say one thing to that note. A lot of the pushback that we've experienced has been from the Magistrates Association because they say they don't want any of their discretion taken away. Now, in the last session, over the last year, they did come to the table, I believe, because of the pressure that we've been putting on them. And they drafted a bill, and we worked, through members of the legislature to get that bill to a place where we both said we agreed. The magistrates agreed. We agreed from a bail bondsman's perspective. And in that bill, the magistrate's bill, it says a magistrate may not release a defendant charged with a felony on his or her own recognizance, and then it goes through all of the misdemeanor offenses. So it would have done basically what we had been trying to do for the last few years. It would have made the no PR for felonies and then no PR for those violent misdemeanors, and it outlined all of those, what they refer to as violent misdemeanors. And so we did, they did come to the table and agree to that language. But then it got introduced on both the House and the Senate, and neither Judiciary Committee ever took up the bill. So I'm hopeful that the Magistrates Association will continue to work alongside us in this upcoming session, and that we can work maybe on the same bill or a different bill, whatever, as long as it accomplishes those goals. I'm hopeful that they'll continue to work alongside us and try to get this bill passed.
Former Delegate Doyle?
I agree with the idea behind this bill. If I were in the legislature, I would support it. I would support it on its merits. I do not think that I've never thought, as a member of the legislature, the 26 years I was in, that if a president of my party said, support this idea, that I should support it simply because a president of my party said support it. I think every legislator should look at this on the merits. It is interesting that a few years ago, I did vote in favor of a bill that would eliminate the ability of a magistrate to say that cash only, not allow the person to get a bond. I think that was wrong because there are some people. I mean, again, you're even if it's a pretty nasty crime, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And if you don't have the money to pay cash, basically you're convicted because of poverty. It's like debtor's prison. You at least ought to let the person go to a bail bondsman and pay enough to get enough money to get a bail bond. That's a separate question than this. I think and yes, I do understand magistrates not wanting their discretion taken from them, but the plain truth is legislative bodies do this all the time. in terms of sentencing, with mandatory minimums and stuff like that. If we let judges and magistrates have complete discretion, we wouldn't have minimum sentences for anything. Anyway.
Tommy?
Can I say one thing about what you just said?
And by the way, Summer, I think Michelle has joined us now. Michelle, is that you?
Okay, good.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, please continue, Summer.
So I just wanted to respond. I do not think, nor did I say, that this legislature should do anything, but especially not this, simply because Trump has said to do it. I'm simply saying he's shining a national spotlight on an issue that we've been trying to fix in this state for years. And so there is more attention on the subject, and perhaps that can shine more light on the fact that we need to do this. Secondly, what John mentioned about cash only, we've also worked on that issue, but that's not really what we're talking about here. So,
yeah, no, I acknowledge that. Yeah,
the association that Tommy is the president of feels the same way that you feel, that someone should not be given a cash only option.
Tommy?
Well, I think right now we're kind of broad. At the end of the day, I don't believe that you should take full discretion away from any magistrate, because that's what they're elected to be there for. But I do believe that any crime where there's a victim of violence, there should be a bond. On felonies, there should be a bond. Now, I know that some magistrates say, well, this is a white-collar crime, and there's nothing saying that they have to have a high bond. A reasonable bond would be appropriate. So,
and Michelle, before I bring John Gilstrap
Yeah.
in, yes, go right ahead, Michelle.
Well, I mean, clearly there's a very big difference between cashless bail and secured bail, right? And I think that's kind of how nationally we need to take a look at it. So cashless bail is everything that's under the auspices of unsecured, right? OR, PR, there's a million cute little names and acronyms for releasing offenders back into communities in an unsecured way. And I'll take it out of the realm of bail for a second, and if you just take a look at what the legislature federally recently is talking about as it pertains to parental involvement in schools and what the children are learning, and when you take that away, it becomes inherently dangerous because government is controlling what our children are learning. It's very similar, essentially, when it comes to release of offenders. When you take away a family's ability on whether or not to release an offender, because there are times when families don't want that recidivist offender, maybe they're involved in the use of narcotics, they don't want that particular offender out. They would rather them stay in jail for a few days to what they call dry up. But when you remove and I mean us as parents, as family members, the ability to get involved in the decision making of whether or not we want to indemnify the release of a recidivist offender, or even an offender that is not necessarily a recidivist offender, the kid that got involved in a DWI, you have a very dangerous recipe for the rising of crime rates. And that's what's happening all over the United States of America. And it's also happening in the state of West Virginia.
Mr. Gilstrap.
I'm sort of awash in a bunch of mismessaging here, I think. If we take any of the famous cases, we use the example of that horrible case in Charlotte of the stabbing on the bus. If that guy had made bail, he'd still be on the street, and he'd still have done the stabbing. Bail is, as I understand it, is to ensure that the accused turns up at trial. So what I'm reading here is sort of an effort to keep not yet convicted people off the street, which then kind of feels like set a bail really high so that the people we don't like the really bad criminals
Oh.
that we perceive. No, let me finish. That the really bad criminals that we perceive to be bad criminals get a high bail and are kept in jail. Now, initially, Summer, when you were talking in your initial comments, you said no one charged with a felony is released on a PR bond. But now when Michelle comes on, we hear about recidivist felons. Okay, there's an argument for mandatory, for me, there's an argument for mandatory bond for a recidivist felon. But for any felon, for a white-collar criminal, for the lady who stole whatever the tipping point for a felony is from the church fund, I think there's just a lot of mixed messaging, especially when I think the president's issues with cashless bail go to cities like New York, as I understand it, where there's mandatory no bail. That for certain crimes you essentially catch and release, which is a whole different thing. So I'm kind of confused on what itch we're trying to scratch here.
Okay, well, can I say something here?
Please.
It seems abundantly obvious to me that you are confused. It seems abundantly obvious to me that you are kind of spewing branded talking points, because let's take a look at the offender in Charlotte. Because let's take a look at the offender in Charlotte, for example. That individual, although he was and is a recidivist offender, that offender is an EDP, an emotionally disturbed person. And that judge, that magistrate, and that court should have had, in New York we call it a 730-30 exam. That person should have been admitted he should not have been subject to bail, any brand of bail, regardless of what the name of it is. Whether anyone in the criminal justice system or anyone that's discussing this particular set of points understands it or doesn't want to understand it, there are people that are recidivist offenders that are emotionally disturbed. And the reason why they continue to offend is because when they were incarcerated, they were getting their SSRIs or antipsychotics, and they were getting them at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., for example. What happens with bail reform and all of these program-type things is they release them back to the streets, and they have absolutely no medication. They cannot tell the fundamental differences between right and wrong, which is why they push people into the subway, which is why they stab young Ukrainian women that are, just trying to have a better life in America. So I think that regardless of political ideology, I think it should be a bipartisan issue that these people that are essentially victims themselves should be put into mental institutions. And our president has a deep understanding of something called common sense. And he has recently made comments about, hey, let's open up psychiatric facilities again. We are suffering at the hands of emotionally disturbed people.
What did you just say that disagrees with what I said?
Actually, to be honest with you, sir, I can't reiterate exactly what you just said.
No. You said you told me that I was going from talking points, and that I was confused, and then you were going to counterpoint. So you started with an insult, and then you went on to say essentially what I heard you say. What I said, I would like you to defend the insult and tell me what you said that was different than what I said.
Well,
we got plenty of time.
Again, I have time too, sir. So I can't exactly repeat what you just said, but when you're talking about the same points as it pertains to bail reform over and over and over again, that people shouldn't be incarcerated because they're not, they can't afford bail and so on. And
did I say that? I didn't say that. I did not say that.
I'm John Doyle, and I'm the liberal on this show, and I said that.
I didn't say that.
I'm the liberal on this show. Go ahead, Tommy, before this gets further personal. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, you said that referencing in North Carolina that if he would have been released on bail, he still would have been on the street and able to commit the crime. But from the bondsman's perspective, 99.9% of the time, we would not have bonded him. We would have required to have co-signers, which would have been the family. And in this case, the family had asked the courts not to release him. So the fact of being on secured bail or using a bondsman, probably pretty slim to none that would have happened. And he would have been out on a
And that would have been the system working.
correct.
Right.
So, Summer, what does the state legislature need to do, if anything, or does the federal legislation override whatever the West Virginia state legislature does? Summer? Do we still have Summer?
I guess I was muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go.
I was talking and no one was hearing me.
Yes.
Apologies.
So what does the state legislature need to do next?
The state legislature needs to take up and pass one form or another of the bills that we've been working on for the last couple of years. We will once again have introduced a bill that would make it so there are no PR for felonies and no PR for violent misdemeanors. As I think Tommy has stated numerous times, where there is a victim, PR should not be an option. We should have some security in those releases, and that, in the association's opinion, is the only way to ensure that our communities are kept safe, and we don't have someone who's charged with assault of a child back on the street to do it again, or rape back on the street to do it again, just on their own personal recognizance. And another thing I always like to talk about is that there are so many times the bail bondsman industry is looked at as like the enemy of the court system or the enemy of the state, but in my opinion, they should be looked at as a partner in this. You know, when you release someone on a PR bond or cash bond, the state is then footed with the bill to go find that person when they don't show up. When you use a bail bondsman or the person chooses to use a bail bondsman, guess what? The bail bondsman is the one that goes and finds them and ensures that they report back. The state is not footing the bill for that at that point. So I've tried to begin to change the perception that the members of our legislature have of the bail industry, because these guys are the ones hunting down and bringing back violent criminals when we need them to appear in court so they can face justice. And so that should be viewed as a net positive for our state and for our communities, not as there's some enemy or of the court system or of the safety and security of our communities. So long story short, I'm urging our legislature to act so they can uphold what they claim to be telephone crime and want to uphold law and order. So this is a part of that.
Can I assume this will be a priority of Governor Morrissey when we return in January for the 60-day session?
I have not talked with the Morrissey administration yet, but it seems like a pretty common sense idea and a pretty common sense approach to keeping our state safe. So I don't see why he wouldn't support it. I did have some conversations yesterday with
15 seconds, Summer. 15 seconds.
Okay, with the chair of the Republican Party, and we're working to get their support publicly, and hopefully the judiciary chairs in both the House and the Senate will be on board also.
Summer Barrett, Michelle Esquenazi, and Tommy Weatherholtz, thank you so much for your participation today. Have a great day.
Thank you.
We are back with more after these.